Hey everyone, welcome to Reddistry. If you love wild Reddit stories like crazy cheating tales, spooky scary stories to fall asleep to, or just need something to relax with, you're in the right place. We've got a new Reddit stories compilation for you every week, so make sure to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Let's get into it. First story. I keep hearing screams, but my son says I'm sick. When my son Melvin moved back in, I thought it would be temporary. At 32, he should have had his life together, but he'd been struggling since he left college. It wasn't the first time he'd landed back on my doorstep, and I know many parents will say that I shouldn't have let him back in. But I can't help but feel I'm the one to blame for where he's at in life. Being a single mom since he was 2, it was very hard, and I did whatever I could to get us here in the States so that he could have a good life, far away from the drama I was surrounded by in the Philippines. Before his dad died, I told him, "I hope you die," because he had been beating me day and night. A week after I said that, he got in a fatal car accident. Maybe if I hadn't, Melvin wouldn't be where he is at today. So yes, I took him back in with open arms. I let him settle back into his room and gave him a list of chores that I do around the house. I'm getting old, so I thought I could benefit as well with his young bones back home. At first it was fine. He kept to himself, helped with groceries, and even mowed the lawn once. But things changed quickly. He started bringing people over, friends, he called them. But each friend was someone new, or someone I simply didn't want in my home. Loud, chain-smoking, drinking until all hours of the night. I tried to talk to him about it once, but he brushed me off. "Mom, I'm a grown-ass man. You don't get to tell me who I can and can't have over," he snapped. "You never let me have privacy when I was a kid. You always barged in and look how I turned out. Now you're going to do this to me again?" His words stung. Was it true? Had I been that overbearing? I was strict, but that's only because I was scared. Moving to a new country and trying to keep up with the different culture. Trying to raise a son in a world I didn't fully understand. Maybe I was too much on him. Melvin always blamed me for his struggles. I thought it was just an excuse, but what if I really had failed him? I didn't argue after that, but I started locking my bedroom door at night and told him that none of his friends are allowed on my side of the house. But the first time I heard the scream, I froze. I thought I imagined it, so I stood there in the kitchen with soap suds slowly popping on my dishwashing gloves. But the second time, it was unmistakable. A high-pitched, horrified cry coming from Melvin's room. I knocked on his door, heart pounding. "Melvin? Is everything okay?" The screaming stopped immediately. His voice came through the door, calm and irritated. "I'm fine, Mom, go back to bed." But I heard, "You always think you hear something. It's nothing. You need to relax, and I told you that you need to mind your business." "But if one of your friends are hurt, we need to call the ambulance," I persisted, attempting to open the door, but it was locked. "Melvin, open this door now!" After too long of a moment waiting there, he finally opened the door with his brows furrowed deeply. "Leave me alone." I pushed past him, but I was shocked to realize nobody was there. "Was it you?" I asked him. "Does it matter? I asked for privacy, and you always push my boundaries. And you wonder why I hated you for so long." His words dug deep, and I apologized for bothering him, but it wouldn't be the last time. Because when I left the room, I might have seen a red stain on the carpet near his closet door. Maybe it was from a small cut, or maybe he was hiding something from me. The screaming continued, almost every night. Sometimes it was muffled, other times it was sharp enough to make me jump. Each time Melvin had the same excuse. "You're hearing things," he'd say. "You need help." Eventually, he took me to the doctor. "She's been confused," Melvin told the doctor, his voice full of concern. "Hearing things that aren't there. She forgets stuff too." I tried to argue, but the doctor gave me a pitying look. "It could be the early stages of dementia or even schizophrenia," he said. "Let's start with a mild antipsychotic and see how you feel." The pills made me groggy, dulled my senses, but they didn't stop the screaming. But as the screaming continued, Melvin would just give me more medicine. Sometimes I wondered if I'd overdose just to get rid of the screaming. One night, I'd had enough. The screaming was louder than ever, and I couldn't bear it anymore. I grabbed my keychain and went outside. My hands trembled as I crept around the house. When I reached Melvin's window, I peered inside. My knees nearly buckled. A young girl, maybe 18 years old or younger, was tied to a chair, her face streaked with tears and open wounds. Melvin and his friends surrounded her, fully naked, laughing and jeering. One of them held a knife. Another held a camera. Melvin was holding her detached foot. I don't remember running back into the house. I don't remember unlocking Kevin's door. All I remember is the girl's glazed-over eyes and the way her body was practically exposed both without clothes and without skin in some areas. I woke up in a hospital bed, my wrists strapped down. My body ached, bruises lined my arms, and there was a bandage on my forehead. Melvin sat beside me, his face pale and tear-streaked. "Mom," he said, his voice trembling. You attacked me. You were screaming about girl. You tried to hurt yourself. I didn't know what else to do." I stared at him, my throat dry. "The girl," I whispered. "Where is she?" His eyes filled with fresh tears. "There is no girl, Mom. You're sick. You need help." The doctor came in then, kind but firm. "It's important for you to rest," he said. "Your son told us about the trauma you suffered in the past. Sometimes our minds can play tricks on us, especially when we've been through so much." Melvin squeezed my hand before he left. "I love you, Mom," he said. "I hope you come to your senses soon. I'll look after the house while you're getting better." Second story. The reflection. My parents were always paranoid, always issuing strange, cryptic warnings that I'd grown used to brushing off as nonsense. "Don't stare at your reflection too long," Mom would say, her eyes darting nervously toward the mirror in the hallway. "And if you hear someone call your name when you're alone," Dad added more than once, his tone grim, "don't answer. Just leave." At the time, it felt ridiculous. What could a reflection possibly do to me? And why would I ever leave my house because I heard my name? It was their way of keeping me scared, I'd thought. A quirky family superstition to keep a kid obedient. I didn't think about their warnings again until I moved into my first apartment. It was nothing special, just a small, dimly lit place in the city. The bathroom had an old mirror above the sink, its edges tarnished, but it was functional. That first night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed something strange. Out of the corner of my eye, my reflection seemed off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it felt like it moved a split second after I did. I stopped and stared at the mirror, waiting for something to happen. My reflection stared back perfectly in sync. I laughed it off, blaming exhaustion. But things only got stranger. Over the next few weeks, I started feeling like I was being watched. Not just watched, but studied. It was subtle at first. I'd catch glimpses of movement in the mirrors, even when I was completely still. Sometimes, it felt like my reflection's eyes lingered on me for a beat too long, like it was memorizing me. Then there were the whispers. They were faint at first, soft murmurs I couldn't quite make out. I convinced myself it was just the neighbors through the walls, even though the sound was always inside my apartment, always near a mirror. One night, unable to sleep, I dug through an old box of family photos I'd brought from home. I found a picture of my parents from years ago, sitting on the couch in our old house. But something about the photo chilled me. Behind them, in the reflection of a window, I saw two shadowy figures. They looked just like my parents, but not quite. Their faces were distorted, their smiles twisted into something cruel. The whispers started again. "Jonah." My head snapped up, my heart pounding. The voice came from the hallway, my mom's voice. "Jonah." It came again, louder this time. It didn't make sense. She was hundreds of miles away. Slowly, I stood and stepped into the hallway. That's when I saw it. The mirror near the door was shimmering faintly, the glass rippling like water. Then my reflection stepped forward. Except I wasn't moving. It smiled at me, its lips stretching too wide, too sharp. My knees nearly buckled as I stumbled back. "Why didn't you listen?" it said, its voice hollow, distorted. "What the hell is this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The reflection pressed its hands against the inside of the glass, its grin twisting into something feral. "We warned them," it hissed. "We warned you." I didn't understand. My parents? Their warnings? None of this made sense. Before I could move, the reflection began pushing through the surface of the mirror, its body bending and twisting unnaturally. Its eyes were empty voids, pulling the light from the room. I turned and ran, but the air grew cold, heavy like thick hands gripping my chest. I didn't make it far before tendrils of shadow shot out from the mirror, wrapping around me and dragging me back. I screamed, clawing at the floor, but it was no use. The last thing I saw before the shadows pulled me into the mirror was my reflection, standing in the hallway, perfectly still, perfectly composed. It smiled softly, tilting its head in mock sympathy. "Now it's your turn," it whispered. The next morning, my apartment was silent. The mirrors were pristine, their surfaces unbroken. If anyone looked, they'd see me standing there, my reflection staring back, smiling faintly. But it wasn't me. And now, I'm trapped on the other side, screaming into the void while my reflection wears my life like a mask.